Hi guys, so I actually just got done filming or editing this video for you guys, and I didn't realize I've been crying, and I've been debating whether or not to even post this video because this story that you're about to hear happened. It kind of took me back to the absolute most painful time in my life, and it's been a while since I've gone back to that time and told a detailed story from that time. So this was very, very painful and hard for me to do, but I ultimately decided I'm going to post it to help other people out there to not feel alone and know that they're not the only ones that are struggling with something like this. So I hope this helps somebody, and trigger warning obviously for eating disorder and self-harm, and a language warning probably. I don't know. I don't remember. Probably, just to be safe. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I love you, and here's the video.
So I get these really weird corner of my mouth sores, and they'll like crack a lot and they'll bleed, and then sometimes they'll like extend into that. So I apologize that I look like the Joker right now, but I can't help it. So, hi. Hi, Shanny Fannies. Welcome to Educating Shanny. I'm Shanny and I'm recovering from an eating disorder. Hi, Shanny. Hi. So I asked you guys on Instagram what you wanted to see tonight because I couldn't decide on what video to do. So I asked you guys to leave me some suggestions, and you guys left me some really good ones. But the one that I want to do today, right now, is tell you guys the story. I can't believe I've never told you this, about how my family and how Danny found out about my self-harm. So this request came from my girl Savvy. I love you, Savvy. Thank you for your request, and I want you all to know that all the other requests are super interesting. They just take more planning, and so I'm probably going to do those coming up. So keep watching and staying for why am I spazzy with my hand today. It's been a rough day. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, and if you don't want to hear a story time about cutting, if it would trigger you, then don't watch. And if you're beautiful, which you all are, then you should know that you are. So okay, let's get into the story. So my self-harm started when, well, let me rephrase that. My cutting started when I was 13 years old, which is right when my bulimia started. It's right when my parents got divorced. I was going through a really, really hard time with the divorce. It was really difficult for me. It was difficult for everybody in their own way. But for me, it was hard because I was just coming into puberty. I was just getting into boys, starting my period, doing all that stuff. And my life was completely changed over a course of one day, one horrible, terrible last day that we all had together. And it was awful. It was the worst day of my life. Every single family member of mine will tell you the same thing. It was the worst day of their life, and we'll never forget it. But once that day happened, that's when my mom finally decided to divorce my dad. And so we moved down to live near my grandma, my mom's mom, who died a year ago, down in Spanish Fork, which is about 20-30 minutes south of us. So that meant that I changed schools and everything. So I changed schools. I went to junior high. I was so nervous, didn't know anybody. It was really, really scary for me. Luckily, I found some really good friends, a couple of really good friends that were there for me, and I'll never forget that. They were really, really wonderful for me. But because I was struggling so much, because I was so sad, and because I just needed attention, I wanted attention because everybody in my family was going through their own hard time, but I felt like I was the only one that was alone. Like, my mom had all of her siblings and her parents, and all of my siblings had a significant other, a husband or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and I didn't. So it was like I really honestly did it for attention the first time. So I started cutting by cutting my arm. It was this arm. I would start cutting like all from here to here all the time, and I would wrap it in bandages and go to school like that and wear short sleeves to make sure that people would notice, like, because I totally did this for attention. But it was attention that came from me hurting, if that makes sense. So my family didn't know what I was doing. Every time I cut myself, I would hide it from my family, but from my friends, I would not. I would flaunt it in front of my friends because I would want them to give me attention, especially the boys that I liked, because I needed male attention because of losing my dad at that time and going through that horrible time. Anyway, so like when I was with my family, I did my best to hide it, or I would lie and say that the cat scratched me and that's why I was wearing a bandage or whatever. Like I really did hide it really well. And to be honest, everybody in the family had too much other stuff going on that they wouldn't have even noticed anyway, because it just was a crazy time in all of our lives. Mine just happened to fall on my puberty, which is not a good time for anything like that, bad like that to happen, because it can scar you and it can like make you feel like it can make you feel stuck in that age forever, which you guys know is a big problem for me. So anyway, moving on. About a year later, wait, how long was I there? Yeah, so I was in Spanish Fork for all of 8th grade. We ended up getting our own place there that was near my grandma, and I went to school for a year there in 8th grade, and I fell in love with my friends and the school and the places, and it just, a lot of things were happening at that school that were bad, and I loved that because I am a rebel at heart, and I had never in my life rebelled before, ever. And it was kind of like a playground for me. That's when I picked up on tips about eating disorders. That's when I learned how to cut. That's like Spanish Fork. When I was there for that specific year, I learned a lot of things that wouldn't be good for me at that age or ever. So I just started doing them, you know? So anyway, after a year of being there, and I had been cutting that whole time, I had been hitting myself, but hitting myself is something I've done since I was a little girl, but the cutting continued for a year. So a year later, we were living in Spanish Fork. I finally got used to all of my friends, and I loved them, and I didn't want to leave, and it would break my heart if I had to leave. And then my mom was getting remarried to my now stepdad, which means who lived back home where we used to live before Spanish Fork, which means that we were moving back to Orem. And it broke my heart because it broke me enough the first time that I was so like traumatized having to leave all my friends at such a crucial age. And then to finally get used to it there and love it and never want to leave, and then have to move back to those old friends that I had. Like it was really, really difficult. So we moved back to Orem after my mom got married, and I just was struggling big time. I went back to school in 9th grade back to my other school that I used to be at, with all of my Orem people that I had grown up with and blah, blah, blah. And so for the first half of 9th grade, I was back in Orem, and I absolutely hated it. I missed my friends in Spanish Fork so much. All I wanted to do was go back. So I started doing what any rebellious teenager that needs attention does, which is I started cutting more openly and being bulimic more openly. Here's my master plan. My master plan was to somehow get back to Spanish Fork somehow. And I really, this is like horrible to say, but it's the truth. I knew that if I became too much for my mom to handle, that maybe she would let me go live with my cousins who still lived in Spanish Fork to finish out my 9th grade year in Spanish Fork and live with them. And so I did everything I possibly could to destroy myself, and it worked. I was able to, my mom needed help with me. I was horrible. I was I was horrible. I've never been mean. I wasn't a mean, rebellious child. I just was doing things that were not good for me. Cutting, bulimia, hitting myself, letting boys take advantage of me, all of the things. And my aunt is like a second mom to me, and she offered to let me live with her and my cousins so that I could go to school there and finish out the year. So I was able to move back to Spanish Fork, and that was the plan. I lived with my cousins for 6 months, I think. So then I got to finish out the year there. So after I got there, I had kind of hidden the cutting again because I knew that I didn't need it. I didn't need the attention because I got what I wanted. I got to go back to Spanish Fork, which is where I wanted to be. However, when I went back, things were not the same as they were before. Everybody had kind of forgotten about me. Everyone had kind of moved on, and I didn't fit in the way that I fit in the first time I was at Spanish Fork. I didn't fit in with that group of people because that group of people had changed and they were different people and they weren't rebelling as much, or they were rebelling in different ways that I didn't want to be part of, or whatever. Like, it just was so different and so difficult. But I felt so embarrassed to myself, because nobody knew this, I felt so embarrassed that I did all of that and went through all of that just to get myself back there, to have it be horrible and to have it fail and be awkward and uncomfortable. So it was awful. And so that is when I fell deep into actual self-harm for the reason of self-harm and not attention, and bulimia for the reason of hurting myself and not for attention. So I started cutting a lot. I started binging and purging all day whenever I was home and hiding it as best I could. So one night I remember feeling very down because I had just gotten off the phone with a boy that I had been in love with since the first time I moved to Spanish Fork. And this particular boy was absolutely in love with my best friend and my cousins. So he never thought of me as a romantic type of thing. I was definitely obsessed with him to an annoying point. So I don't blame him for not being attracted to me, because I was very lonely and just wanted attention from him, and I was obsessed with him. But anyway, I had just had a phone call with him, and he called, and this kind of thing would happen all the time where he would call me and I'd get excited, like, oh, he's calling me, oh my gosh, my boy that I'm in love with is calling me. I didn't care if it was for whatever reason he was calling me for. The point in my mind, my crazy mind, was that he was calling me, so maybe he does like me, you know what I mean, like that type of thing. So we're talking on the phone, and it starts out like, hey Shannon, how are you, like, what's going on with you? And I was feeling like so cared about and so great and lovely. And then he's like, so did you find out if so-and-so likes me? Did you find out if your cousin likes me? Did you find out if she'd be willing to date me? Did you find out blah blah blah? And all of a sudden, I kid you not, like, something hit me like a ton of bricks. How sad my life was, that I had done everything. I had gone through so much pain with my family growing up, and going through a horrible, traumatizing divorce and last moments with our whole family together, to leaving school, my best friend Mouse, leaving her and all of my other best friends, going to a completely new city, completely new school, completely alone, completely not knowing anybody, and still needing to deal with the divorce and my eating disorder and self-harm, and being overweight and having boys not like me. And it was like everything. And then going back to Orem, and then like having to like overdo it so that I could get sent back to Spanish Fork to be with my friends, and then to go back to see that they're not the same anymore and they didn't want me anymore. And like, I don't know what happened. It just hit me. And I hung up on him basically. I said, I have to go by. And that's not like me. I'm boy crazy. If a boy calls me, I'm going to stay on the phone as long as I freaking can. But I was like, I got to go by. And I hung up and I went to my room and I grabbed my razor blade and I took out the blade and I just started slitting my arm as deep and hard as I could. And I just was crying and bleeding and crying and like trying to cry really quietly because I didn't want anyone to hear, but I also just didn't care anymore. Like I was so upset and everything just hit me so hard that's just how it came out. And I just went at it. So I was bleeding very, very badly. And I was in my room, and in order for me to get to my bathroom, I would have to pass two of my cousin's rooms who were there with their doors open. And then my other cousin was in the living room, which is the other way of my room. So like I was basically trapped with a huge bloody arm and I didn't know what to do. I didn't have anything in my room. So I like wrapped a t-shirt around it and I like zoomed past the living room and my cousin that was sitting there and went out the back door and up the stairs and outside. So I go outside and my aunt chases me out. She's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. She's like, no, you're not. What's the matter? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. And then she sees the blood, like it was soaking through the t-shirt. And she's like, what did you do? Obviously, she's freaking out. She's like, what happened? Did you do this to yourself? Did someone hurt you? Did you do, like freaking out? And that's when I lost it verbally. I said, I'm done. I hate life. I don't want to be here. There's no point for me being here. I have nobody. I'm completely alone. Nobody's ever going to love me. Nobody's ever going to understand what I'm going through. Nobody. I'm completely alone. And I'm surrounded by people that are so wonderful and so beautiful. And it just makes me hate myself more. And it just was like everything. I can't even remember everything. I just word vomited every single thing that I had been holding in to her. And she just held me while I cried. And that's why I love her. I love her so much. Jenny, if you're watching, I love you more than you'll ever know. But she just held me so tight. And then we were sitting on the front porch outside and she left me for a minute to go in and try and get like some water and some Band-Aids and stuff. So I'm sitting out there on the porch and then from the porch, I hear my uncle and my aunt just yelling about what just happened because my uncle is, oh my gosh, he's one of the best men I've ever met in my entire life. This man is so amazing and good. Like he's just a good man and he's loyal and he's protective. And so he didn't understand this. He didn't understand why I was cutting myself. So his first reaction was anger. Like, why is she doing that? And are my children learning that? Because he's so protective of his children. So the first thing he did was he picked up the phone to call my mom. So he called my mom, told my mom everything. And that's when I moved back home with her. And that's when I got into therapy more deeply and got myself some help, even though I didn't let it help me. But anyway, that's about it. That's how my family found out. It was kind of just all kind of happened at once on that one horrible night. And there are a few horrible nights in my life I have like a top 10 horrible nights. And at the very top is that last day with my family before the divorce. And then I would say this story is up there as well because I'll never forget how it felt. Like I just felt so alone. And I felt like I was in trouble, even though I wasn't. Like my mom, I think she had learned because we all know that when she found out about my bulimia, she punished me, she grounded me. But then she learned about it. She learned about eating disorders and she learned that it wasn't my fault and that it was an illness. And that you're not supposed to punish it, just help it. So I think she'd learned from that because she didn't really punish me for it. She just showed me more love, more and more love, as much love as she knew how. And I'll never forget that. But it was a hard situation. And then when Danny first found out, it was when we were first married and we were living with my parents for the first time, not this last time we were living with them. Danny just walked in on me. I was in the bathroom with my razor on the floor, and I just was cutting my leg, and he happened to walk in. And he got really mad because, again, he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know how to handle it. All he saw was that I was hurting myself, and he's like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like ripping it out of my hands. Like, he just was angry about it. And then he kind of, like, I was screaming at him because I'm like, "Well, this is what you do." Like, I was like, I think part of me honestly was doing it for attention at that time. I don't remember, but I just feel like if it wasn't for attention, I would have locked the door, and I didn't do that. I don't know why. I don't know why I was doing it at that time, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was just for attention back then. But anyway, it turned into this huge, long 4-hour discussion with him explaining why I did this and why I feel I have to do it, and relating it to my bulimia and talking about that with him, and really like getting deep with him. And once he started to like grasp the illness of it, he just started crying and felt sad, and then he just held me. Like, he just held me for like a good hour, just right there on the bathroom floor, after I'm just hugging him and crying in his arms. And that's it. That's how he found out. So, needless to say, when we went to therapy for our separation issues, that was one of the first things that came up to work on together. And doing that helped him to learn a lot more, like facts and, the psychology of it. He just would come to my therapy sessions and just sit and listen. He wouldn't even participate sometimes. Sometimes he would just be there to listen and learn why I do the things I do, what I went through, what led me to it, how he can help me, all those things. So I'm very, very lucky and blessed that I have an amazing family who their number one priority is to keep me safe. And so that's why they reacted so angrily, because they didn't understand it. But because they love me so much, they took the time to try and understand it, and they figured it out. And since then, it's just been really, really awesome that they are, like, I can always count on my family. No matter what hard time we go through, no matter who's hurting or who's going through what, we can always know that we will be there for each other at the end of the day, no matter what. So I love my family, and I love my husband more than words, and he has been my rock, and he has taken on so much more than a human being, any man should have to, and he does it with love and kindness and patience. And yeah, so that's about it. That's my story. This was really long, sorry. And thank you again, Savvy, for this topic. I can't believe I've never talked about this. I feel like maybe I have, but I don't remember. So tell me in the comments, does anyone remember? Have I talked about any of this? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah. Okay, so I'll see you guys tomorrow, and thanks for watching. And remember forever and always that you are beautiful, you are worth it, and you don't have to cut or punch or hurt yourself at all to get attention or to even make yourself feel better. There are better things, and trust me, there are. And we are in this together. You're not alone. We're all going through it, and we can get through it. Just try as hard as you can every single day, every single hour, every single minute, every single second. Why does this every time? Guys, fudge. I'll wake up with this orange stuff just on my front teeth. I don't understand where it comes from. Anyway, I love you guys. Remember forever and always that you are beautiful, you are worth it, and I am too. Thank you for watching. Bye. Love you.